So hello, everybody, and thank you for attending here today and listening into what I believe are three things I'd like to talk to you about. One is that in the era of AI, organizations are going to need HR, human intelligence, and that's created a leadership imperative. Because you see, there's a perfect human capital storm taking place, and now the new layer of it is AI. At the end, I'm going to share with you three takeaways or three considerations. But before I get into the AI piece, I want to share with you what's going on in the workplace and what's going on with the workforce. So let's get started. If any of you have ever worked for this type of individual before, can you please put a yes in the chat? And I apologize up front for bringing up bad memories. I used to work for a guy who used to yell at people behind his closed doors in his office. And it was rather interesting because we could still hear him throughout the suite. Ironically, it was an HR suite out of all places. These individuals, though, when organizations allow them to fester and do things that they shouldn't be doing, leads to what's called employee disengagement. And it's costing companies trillions of dollars, which for the life of me, I don't understand why, because organizations are usually focused on the bottom line. And here's just some examples of what disengagement is costing companies. And as a matter of fact, while this is going on, work is now also the fifth cause of death due to stress, as highlighted in this book, Dying for a Paycheck. Just last week, Fortune came out with an article that said almost 1 million people die a year because of stress in the workplace. Not surprisingly, that's why 1/3 of people would give up a pay raise to see their boss fired. Because you see, for 70% of the workforce, their boss is their biggest stressor. But there's a change afoot taking place. People have different expectations this day and age. People are looking for autonomy, purpose, and mastery. They don't want to be micromanaged. They want to do something bigger than them, and they want to continue to learn irrespective of age. They want to be happy at work. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was 17 and went to work for the first time, that wasn't a reason for it. But I'm glad this is front and center now, particularly since we spend most of our adult life at work. And they asked 200,000 people worldwide, what are you looking for in your next employer? And this was it. By the way, pay was number 8. And so as you look at that, the other piece that's happening too is that meaning is the new paycheck. So when organizations start to recognize this and pay attention to it, and their leaders pay attention to it, it leads to high trust in organizations, which in turn turns the numbers in a positive way. Less stress, higher productivity, more engagement, less burnout. Bottom line, this has bottom line implications. Because you see, in great places to work, employees in those organizations outperform those in organizations that are not great places to work. And here's just two examples. There was an interesting article, I reposted it on LinkedIn, comparing these two, which are in the same industry. The difference is Costco keeps coming up on 100 great places to work, and it also has the lowest turnover rate in the industry. I, by coincidence, happened to visit Costco on Friday. I would have sworn it was a Black Friday because it was packed. On my way home, since I had read the article, I said, let me stop at Sam's and see what's going on there. It was pretty the opposite. So this brings me to the elephant in the room, of which Marty spoke about a few sessions back, where he said he was at an event in Denver and the topic du jour was AI. So yes, AI is poised to create a whole new way of working with that context and background that I just shared with you. And let me just give you an example. When this magazine came out last year, the editors on the front article wrote, this magazine was written by AI. And then we went in and corrected it, edited, and proofed it, which means they basically humanized it. So obviously there's one career or one profession that's already being impacted, being writers. The big concern that people have is AI going to eliminate millions of jobs? But I would argue that we've seen this movie before. Because you see, when the PC came into existence, which now seems like 100 years ago, it was last century, it eliminated 3.5 million jobs and created 20. And AI, depending on what you read, is expected to eliminate 92 and create 170 million jobs in the next 3.5 years. Now, I have good news for my speakers here listening today. There was an article that came out and highlighted the top 40 jobs that AI is probably going to eliminate. The good news is keynote and speaker was not on that list. So we have a little bit of job security still. Now, there's organizations that get enamored with the shiny new object, such as IBM, who laid off 8,000 employees because of AI, only to have to rehire them because of AI. And that's just one example of several. Microsoft, who's also investing millions in AI, says the key skills needed going forward are the people skills, communication, listening, empathy, all of those skills that you thought about that boss at the beginning we were talking about. So that's one piece. The second piece when it comes to AI is that several people think AI is going to take over the world. So I want to put a free plug in for you on this movie here. It's about a cop who's accused of murdering his wife, and the judge and jury is AI. It brings up interesting ethical and moral dilemmas from an AI and an HR perspective. But when I think of AI and people think about AI taking over the world, they think about some of my other favorite movies. I would suggest to you that technology is already taken over the world. Because maybe, just maybe, there's a person or two that while I was speaking has been checking their phone. And neuroscientists tell us we check it out over 100 times a day and it literally shrinks our brain. And there's actually an app on your phone where you can check and see if everything's okay, if you're still using it too much. And for those of you that have kids in grade school through college or nieces and nephews, these two data points might catch your attention. These mobile devices affect the kid's heart and their metabolic health. And there was a former teacher, now neuroscientist, speaking to Congress and sharing with them for the first time ever at Generation Z, their cognitive scores dropped. And when they looked to see what was going on, what they found out was that technology was being introduced into the school settings. These devices are called weapons of mass distraction, costing companies billions of dollars. And by the way, I thought I'd take us down through memory lane because you see, when the phone was tied with a wire, humans were free. Marty would call me, I'm not home. Eventually we'd connect and somehow we survived. The other piece is this. I wrote this article, 6 Untouchable Human Powers AI Cannot Replicate. You can find this on my website, Human Intelligent Workplace, under resources. Drop me a line and let me know what you think. But the bottom line is this. AI is a tool and it's not a replacement for our brain. At the end of the day, if AI is not being accepted, it's probably not AI is the problem. It's probably a leadership problem. Because you see, neuroscientists are telling us that our brain needs a leader to create environments that feel safe and certain. And AI is creating a bunch of uncertainty, and we're not neurologically wired that way. As a matter of fact, now there's a new phenomenon called AI burnout. And we also need a leader that communicates well and understanding easy. So I like to say the more things change, they remain the same, because years ago I was educating leaders in the Air Force on communication skills. Fast forward to today, I'm still doing that. And yet an article came out, a research came out that said 5% of leaders are effective communicators. 5%. So this is not just Edwin or Dr. Marino's opinion. Research makes the case. Here you got several books that highlight all about the brain and neuroscience and neuroleadership. We had a speaker here not too long ago speak about this a while back. Highly recommend you check that out, particularly for yourself. And as we're aging, there's a lot of research going on there. And then even as you think of, there's other books that talk about AI, you notice that human is scattered throughout it. Now, I've done you the favor. I've read them all and I've written 3 of them. The takeaway from these is the following. Organizations that are human-centered and create a human-intelligent organization will have a competitive advantage going forward. So here are my 3 takeaways for you. In the era of AI, the 5 roles of leaders are going to be the following. They're a celebrity because the spotlight's on them. People are watching what they say and do, and if they can coincide. Quasi-psychologists, because they show up with their strengths, weaknesses, insecurities, and personal issues, and the people interacting with show up with the same. And those interactions could go good, bad, or indifferent, depending on what the leader does. Sociologists, because of team dynamics. Anthropologists, because of organizational culture. And conductor of an orchestra, because just like they have to bring out beautiful music from different instruments and musicians, the leader has to bring out the best out of all their people in order to deliver on the goals of the organization. Or in other words, demonstrate behaviors of smart supervisors. Secondly, they might want to consider, in the era of AI, creating a human intelligent workplace, which I define as effective leadership behaviors that can create an organizational culture where people are engaged and collaborating, where they collaborate with their diverse teams, feel psychologically safe, listen to, remember the 5%, and find satisfaction in the work they do and the people they work for. Because at the end of the day, leaders require interpersonal and critical thinking skills enhanced by AI, not replace. And lastly, as you all go around the world and speak to audiences, when you're coming off that stage and people are lining up to get your autograph, if the subject goes here to the AI space, remind them that in the growing era of AI, organizations are going to require more human, not less. Thank you very much.